Can you touch on a sample point and location and sampling technique? Absolutely. So, first things first, we want to focus on the basics. I know there's a variety of different sample vacuum pumps that are on the market. Honestly, the ones that I'm going to recommend the most are just these really simple ones right here. They just pull a vacuum as you put a sample bottle onto them. So they just screw on just like that. Use this PET tubing. You'll go into a reservoir and then you'll be able to vacuum out the oil. Now, in the reservoir itself, we want to be careful about where we sample. So, I have this little stand in for a reservoir here. Whenever our sample tubing goes in, we want to get somewhere about half to maybe close to a third down towards the bottom to get a good representative sample. Now, this one's been made up with a lot of water in it to show some different conditions here. Normally, you wouldn't have this amount of water in your systems. So, you do want to get, like I said, to that half or a little deeper mark. You want to avoid going all the way to the bottom. So we can see here, there's all this dirt and debris and everything. It's one of the purposes of a reservoir to collect those heavier materials, keep them from circulating through the system. So we don't want that sample tubing to go all the way to the bottom. Likewise, if we have a drain port, we don't want to pull from that drain port because we're just going to get all of this nasty stuff on the bottom. It's not going to be representative. We're going to see high particle counts. We're going to see high water. We're going to see high wear metals. It's not going to be representative. So we definitely want to avoid that. So that's some of the big things there as far as your technique. Now, on your locations, we can touch a little more on this. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Let me pull this up. So if we, once again, take a look at this reservoir here, we have this good representative area here in the center. Once again, at the bottom, we have all the junk. And at the top, we don't have a lot of useful data either, a lot of foam and everything else up there. So we do have some other things we can use, like this is sort of representative of a Lunetta pod. So it has that pitot tube that comes in. You can also use pitot tubes coming in from the side or putting sample ports in the side or coming down with your tubing through the breather, those types of things. So while I have my screen shared, this is the type of vacuum pump I would avoid. So this is one that we had recently that our customer was seeing a lot of moisture. It was not a lot of moisture that we were, basically saying shut down the equipment right now, but it was more than what we expected for the environmental conditions. So it led to some pretty big frustrations because they did have desiccated breathers on their equipment. They were doing everything they were supposed to. Well, come to find out, this was being washed with soap and water. And while they were using compressed air to dry it out, we weren't able to get it fully dry. So that's where we were starting to see that little bit of elevated moisture from. We took samples using the little vacuum pump with the sample bottle on it, and the moisture issues are completely gone. So that's the big point with your like sampling equipment. We want to avoid introducing that contamination as well with that. So, talking about some of those other items, we have said, these Lunetta pods. These things are awesome. So, sight glasses, things of that nature. But you also have the sampling point right here. So we can take little adapters and put right onto here, and we're able to pull that sample right into our sample gun. Nice, easy, clean. You can bend this tube, this pitot tube, down into the oil more, so that way you're in a more representative area. Likewise, it's not uncommon to see this test port style on a lot of hydraulic systems. So you can also pull live sample points or live samples with these same type of adapters. This is like a check fluid B series or a Stoff Test 20. They're pretty interchangeable there. So that's one of the ways we can look into taking those samples, as well as if we don't have a good way to go through the top, we can look at something like a drain port adapter. So this is a system from Deskcase, but Luneta also offers similar things, and there's other companies that offer same things. So we have a sample port right here. Well, we go into the bottom of usually a gearbox with these, and we can actually bend this rod up once again into that representative sample area. We can connect another sample port right here. This one happens to be a check fluid L series, a little bit higher flow. So there's a couple different ways we can go about that. These are also super handy because you can also put a quick connect on them and use that for kidney looping of your oil, filtering it. So that's another type of option you can look into. So, and to see one of those in place and in action, let me go ahead and share my screen again here real quick. So we have this example here. So this one is using one of those pre-made adapters, and we can see where we have that sample port there. And we also have our sight glass here stemmed up the top. So that's one way. But you can even make these with just black pipe tees or stainless tees. All you need is a few fittings there to be able to go in. So we're able to achieve a higher flow out of this quick connect by building one out ourselves. Then of course they also have a return up here as well, going through that breather stem with another adapter. So they're seeing those types of things in action, and they work very well.